Hi everyone, welcome to Meet a Blue Expert. My name is Zach and I'll be the moderator for today. And the Meet a Blue Expert series is organized by EU4Ocean Forum with the purpose of highlighting career paths in the marine science and policy field. And today's session is being recorded and will be uploaded online where you can watch some other episodes in the series. So today's expert is Dr. Marta Pascual, and we'll have some questions for her, and there will be time in the end to answer questions from the audience as well. So I'll quickly introduce Dr. Pascual from her biography. So Dr. Marta Pascual is the WestMED expert under the EU MSP platform, where she supports Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Malta. She's also the national hub for Spain for the Atlantic Assistance Mechanism, as well as for the EU WestMed initiative. She has worked as senior associate expert for the EU Commission in eco-risks to advance blue growth and the blue economy. She holds a PhD in Maritime Spatial Planning, is a former Basque postdoctoral researcher, and currently an associated researcher at the Basque Center for Climate Change in Spain. Here she works on the eco-modeling research team on the development of ecosystem service models using ARIES, which is a semantic modeling platform utilizing artificial intelligence. She has more than 13 years of experience in the application and implementation of various European environmental and maritime directives. Her experience in research includes various lines of spatial analysis, stakeholder engagement, scenario mapping, participatory mapping, as well as applications in maritime policies, integrated coastal management, biological and ecosystem services valuation. Marta, thank you for being here today. I'm going to start off by asking you a basic question, but what is maritime spatial planning? And can you highlight its role in advancing sustainable development and conservation and other policy priorities?
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for the EU4Ocean Forum and Coalition for having invited me. I've always wanted to be part of a chapter, and now I can say I've done that also in my curriculum, so that's great. Okay, what is marine spatial planning? I think from most of us that we've been here in the MSP week, we know that. But in summary, it is the process for organizing the maritime activities that are happening in our seas and our oceans. So all the different activities that are happening, the way of organizing it is through marine spatial planning, but, and here comes the challenge, we need to organize these maritime uses in a socioeconomic proper way, ecological environmental way, and in a less impactful way for the ocean environment. So really thinking about the term sustainability behind, and I think that's the tricky question of how do we do that. So if we are aiming to do a proper MSP, then we should achieve those environmental, economic, and social goals that we are aiming for.
And focusing a bit more on your path, we read your biography, but I think a lot of people would be curious to know what your career trajectory looked like. So how did you get to where you are now in the MSP field?
Okay, so I think my trajectory really explains where I ended up, and hopefully that will clarify why I've touched so many different things. Everything starts with the love for the sea. I mean, I come from a coastal city, San Sebastian, in the north of Spain. So we don't live looking behind to the sea, but really acknowledging the sea and loving it. So that's where I studied biology. And then I did my master specialized in oceanography, where I started realizing the complexity about the ocean. So how dynamic it was, how challenging it was to really tackle some of the issues of the ocean. At that time, I had a really incredible director of a PhD that told me, why don't you do a PhD in MSP? And at that time, marine spatial planning was not even part of the directive. It was a starting conversation in the corridors of the European Commission. So we didn't have a directive, but this director heard in the Commission that this was coming and said, well, we need to do a PhD before it comes. so that when it comes, we can tell the people how to do it. So I started doing a PhD on something that didn't exist. There was no guide direction, and really coming out of the very philosophical point of view that really is driving me nuts even nowadays. So then I did my PhD on MSP, which was one of the first MSP PhDs in Spain at least. And then the directive came. And it was really curious because if you read the end part of my PhD, the discussion part, which is the most important part of all the PhDs, the chapters are okay, but the end part is what really is driving you towards the future. I was saying, oh, be careful with this. And still 12 years after that, with MSP, second round, etc., we are still doing, be careful with this. So, okay, it's a bit frustrating, but also shows the complexity of what we are tackling off. And right now, my research is moving ahead and saying, how can we solve at least one of those tick boxes? And I'm doing it through semantics because I think now that I've also gone to the other side and listened to the politicians, the way we are expressing ourselves is very different. The way, the language they use, the language we technical people use, scientific use, and we need to bridge that gap. And it's not the only way, one of the most efficient ways is really through semantics.
Would you say that this is the field or the part of marine spatial planning that really excites you? Is this semantic application in communication with policymakers?
Yes, it's the one that excites me and the one that I think can solve a lot of the issues we are still not ticking the box. Why do I say this? It's so we are working on different topics, and each one of us is trying to answer one question. But oceans are a dynamic and very complex system. So we need to acknowledge complexity and not just simplify it. We need to simplify it for the policymaker for the specific question they are asking, but without taking out the complexity behind. And the only way of doing that, because our brains cannot handle this much complexity because we are not used to that, we haven't trained them, is to have this nice conversation with computers and with servers and use their brains, which actually is the linking of many servers, with artificial intelligence so that we train them to think in this complexity and to answer to simple questions of politicians. And we need to develop those things, and semantics is one of the way of talking to computers.
Mm. So this kind of highlights your work with ARIES, which is this platform that you use in your work. Is there anything else you want to highlight about what makes this tool particularly useful for answering questions in MSP?
So here I would like to really thank Ferdinando Villa. Ferdinando is the professor that has developed ARIES. ARIES is an artificial intelligence platform. And let's think about a white canvas that needs to be painted, okay? So this white canvas is ARIES. And whatever you paint there, if it's an environmental model, a social model, or an economic model, if properly painted and really making the proper links through semantics, then can answer these complex questions. So he built this platform and the underneath semantics that talk to this platform, that's very, very powerful. Why are they powerful? Because it embraces this complexity. It really embraces what we call interoperability, the linking of different information, towards providing the answers that you're asking. It's just like now you're asking ChatGPT and it's giving you replies. Okay, that is coming from a pool of information. Imagine if you were asking a computer and the computer was reasoning behind, not just searching for what is the most suitable answer to your question, but reasoning with all the different things that it has inside and providing you the best available answer at that time. And that is the real good part. Another good part is something we were mentioning before in the previous panel, that it allows people to collaborate. because you don't need to be an expert in economics. The economic person paints the economic part in the canvas. The social person paints the social part, and the environmental expert on seagrasses just focuses on improving those models of seagrasses. What the machine does is reasons amongst each one of them, the entry point, and provides a common answer that you may have not even think about it. So we need to be very humble because we acknowledge that we don't have the capacity to embrace that complexity, and sometimes the computer will find connections that you haven't think about it. And be critical with artificial intelligence, because sometimes it's giving you shit in, shit out. So if what is coming out it's horrible, let's train it to be better. Let's have the proper knowledge be included. Maybe the people that are training the computer are not the best, and we need to improve those things. Don't throw it to the garbage, just work on it.
So yeah, we've touched on AI, which is such a controversial topic. How do you think early career researchers and professionals should interact with this technology, acknowledging that it's part of research now and really integrated in your work?
I mean, AI is already part of our lives, and it will be much more of our kids' lives and everything. So we don't need to be afraid of AI, but really be literate on AI and know what are the good parts and where can we really improve our everyday working life and our scientific knowledge with AI. It's proven to be very useful for medical purposes. And we are relying on some of the diagnoses being given by AI. So why can't we rely on the diagnosis of the environmental health of our oceans on AI if it's really properly trained? So it's just gathering all the knowledge we have right now. We are talking about traditional knowledge, and it gets more and more related to the third thing. Imagine if we could incorporate it and we could really say back to a policymaker, okay, this is the knowledge. You can either not look at it or look at it. And these are the potential consequences of not looking at it or not. So yeah, don't be afraid of AI,
Yeah.
I would say.
I guess it's a skill like many
It's a
others.
skill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that topic, do you have any other skills besides AI that you think future ocean professionals should really learn to harness and use in their careers?
Yeah, I think it's more a skill that I will extrapolate not just for young advocates working on ocean, but overall. Your future is more and more uncertain, all of our futures. So embrace uncertainty, be resilient about it, and be able to modify or to adapt to whatever is coming. So the more resilient you are, the more opportunities you are. I would say it comes with also pragmatic optimism, way of seeing things. You need to be optimistic pragmatically, not the stupid optimistic, but really looking into real future. And there is in the ocean two things that I would like to highlight, and things that I usually tell my mentors. My mentees, is to either become super specialized on something. So either be the best person who knows everything about, or everything, or mostly everything about mammals, or embrace the integration part, be able to link things. We need people that are really linking different fields towards these complex answer topics.
That's very helpful. What do you think schools and universities can do to facilitate this knowledge and this kind of awareness, for example, for resilience in their students?
Yeah, well, for resilience, it goes even earlier on, since you are born, I would say. It's a family issue that also needs to be tackled. The education system still is very square, at least at some of the countries, and the curriculum system, and I acknowledge that. So the masters are trying to bring in different disciplines into one and merging them. I think this future about micro-credentials, which is another topic that it's coming, like really becoming credential on something specific, will help enhancing the collaboration between different disciplines, but it's an educational system issue that they train on something and then you are just thinking you just want to do or have to do that one. Get out of those silos and look around. And if you're doing a master that doesn't have anything to do with your career, I would say you're on the right path.
Great. So that kind of highlights the importance of breaking down silos and working integratively. Does MSP share principles with more like land-based spatial planning processes, and how can people who are working in these interconnected but not directly overlapping fields work with the ocean side of things?
Yeah, I mean, it's a planning topic, so that's the commonality with land planning. It's true that we get influenced too much by land planning into marine planning, which I would have to say it's much more dynamic and much more complex. I mean, you cannot put a fence into water. The water, my friend, this, I don't know, advertisement of the TV, so water flows. Mm-hmm. So it's more difficult to make spatial boundaries into something that flows. So that's the part that I would not take from land one. But let's not forget that whatever we throw into the oceans and marine may come from land. So those land interactions need to be better understood. And that's where the connection needs to be with the coastal, not just through pollution, but also because if we are looking at ecosystem services or well-being, at the end, the recipients of those services, it's us. And we are not in the water. We don't live in water world, not yet, but we live in land. So we need to acknowledge that as part of the planning.
Yeah. And you said that you can't build fences in the ocean. And you work kind of for and between multiple different countries. So yeah, I guess I'm curious how this difference in governance between these different countries, despite sharing common ocean, how does this work in MSP? And I think it's called the Sea Basin approach. Mm-hmm. Can you explain how this helps to unify governance, or should be unified?
So before the planning of the ocean, before MSP, was sectorial. So each sector was deciding where to put things. MSP came, the sectorial view was moved into a much more multi-sectoral planning, but it still is a planning from a country. And still you get MSP plans from a country that even within the country, there are different regions or whatever that also makes it difficult. So now let's think that you have a common sea basin like the Mediterranean. So whatever Spain decides into their MSP plans may end up affecting Italy or France in this case, because it's the one we are sharing borders, or Morocco with our southern shore borders. So this conversation needs to happen with the neighbor countries first, because that's the first challenge, but then with the wider sea basin, because at the end, whatever you are doing somewhere, as the water flows, may end up in another part of the Mediterranean. So what we are doing with the sea basin strategies within the European MSP platform, but also within the WestMED initiative in the Mediterranean on blue economy and the Atlantic Action Plan in the Atlantic, is to enhance this conversation between countries so that Spain can hear France, France can hear Italy, and Morocco can tell Spain, don't do that, because at the end, you may end up affecting me, even though our southern shore Mediterranean countries do not have the mandate to have an MSP plan because of non-European mandates.
And do sectors across the countries, do they also have these conflicting interests, for example, between fisheries and conservation? And does MSP also work to facilitate these connections between sectors?
Yeah, conflicts still exist and they will be there. What they do is the sharing of practices and experiences. So how did I tackle this issue of offshore wind energy with fisheries? How did you tackle it? Is there any protocol that I need to find in how to solve these issues? But still, there is a lot more that needs to be done in terms of conflicts between users, but also in terms of what is now another research topic, which is the cumulative impact assessment. So really knowing each of the sectors, what impacts are they doing, how these are accumulated, because maybe you are just creating the impact, but you are just creating the activity in your area, but the impact it's somewhere else in another country.
Do you think that this, in your experience, this cooperation ultimately benefits everyone, or have you experienced this kind of win-win scenario between this cooperation as a result of it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, cooperation is always a win-win. At least if you manage to have people talking, that's a win. Depends how you see the win. That's the semantics. What's the value? What's a winner for you? I mean, that depends on what each of us defines as winning. If winning for you is economically winning, then maybe it might not be fair. But if it's environmentally win-win solution, maybe yes, but not now, in the future. So, yeah, for me, collaboration is a winning issue always.
Well, I want to give a chance for audience questions. So, I would open
No
more time
online.
from online. Okay. If there's any in person. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Zeller from the Flemish Marine Institute. Thank you for all the very interesting information. From my point of view, as a NICOP auditor researcher, it's super interesting to know how you got there and or kind of the advice that you give as well. I have many questions, but one of them is which data do you use? You said if you give garbage, you'll get garbage out of the model. So which data do you actually use to do your work or to create it?
And just to repeat it, the question is, which data do you use and how do you ensure it's high quality?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are we are using all the data that is publicly available. So all the data we can get from Copernicus, EMODNet, in the future, Edito, everything. I mean, all open servers that really provide. That's why we are really aiming for open collaboration on data. We don't produce our own data. We don't go into oceanographic things to get down, because we want them to really be following the FAIR principles, findable, accessible, replicable. So we want to provide you, we give you the pathway even of all the models we are giving. We give it for free. I mean, it's not a black box. You can replicate it yourself. Get the same data, do the same algorithms, and get the same answers. If you have the platform, you can use the one we are providing to just click the button and get it. But if you have better data, you can test how that results improves with your own pocket data. And I'm saying pocket very nicely because none of us has our own data. It's been paid by public funds, by public projects of European, by national funds. I mean, naively, none of us has their own data to pay for own oceanographic data, okay? So, but you can test that. What we ask is that if your model improves the modeling, your data, improves the model a lot and realize the uncertainty, to try and see if you can provide that data into one of those big European servers or open servers, if not the raw data because of whatever issue, in an aggregated form, so that others can benefit from it and get the most accurate answers themselves too. So then, collectively, we would improve. So you have the last word of what are you going to do with that knowledge and that value, because data is value nowadays that you are doing. So if we collectively all move towards that vision, imagine how many things we could do.
And how do you plan to use editor?
Oh, not yet, because we are searching what editor is first, and we are looking at the different data lakes and how is it created. So our belief is that our entry point could be through a semantic server, where we can put that knowledge on the semantics. Leave editor do the nice things they still, well, leave Copernicus do the nice things they still do, leave EmotNet do the nice things, the amazing things they still do, everyone, but include that semantic layer at some point that will allow for interoperability in a much more broader sense. So each one of us really puts the knowledge where we know. We don't want to gather, we don't want to be Copernicus 2, need editor 1 or 2 or 6.7. No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Well, I think maybe I'll do one last question to wrap it up. So looking ahead for the next 10 years, what do you hope maritime spatial planning will look like? And maybe specifically in the European context, or it can be the global context?
Oof. My super dream, and now it's moving towards that. I mean, we are seeing the European Commission putting MSP in the center with the Ocean Act. I was super happy because the way I see MSP is really could be the center of many of the challenges, but if seen in a proper way, not just as a planning tool, if seen as embracing all that complexity. So I would love to that the planner can play like this avatar Iron Man that puts the Googles and starts playing and says, okay, make this question, get this answer, that's for you. And all of our scientific knowledge really feeding that machine with the best available knowledge, improving the data that we ingest, the uncertainty getting lower and lower and lower. And that's how I see it.
Yep.
That's my dream at some point.
And that's where the young ocean advocates come in, and
Of
those
course.
who are currently studying this topic. Well, I want to thank you for being here today, and I hope everyone can give a big round of applause to show their
Thank you.
appreciation.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.